Chances are that Danny Brown is a rapper you either adore or don't truly understand yet. And for a good reason. He's an interesting character. Someone who's able to simultaneously be nerdy and street, if I'm allowed to broadcast that. Because of this, he's one of the few acts out there competent enough to riff on both indie head and gangster rap tropes and ideas. Hipster by heart, but I can tell you how the streets feel. Danny opens with I'm Lonely, a defining track on his 2013 masterpiece, Old.
Hipster by heart, but I can tell you how the streets feel. Everybody thirsty and they looking for a refill. If the gang eating guns, barking at your doggy bag, get took out for your takeout, now you carry out. Murder by delivery.
Upon first listening, Old seems like an artistically passive next step for Danny Brown. Triple X governed respect, and rightfully so. It was high concept, focused, technically impressive, introspective, and cold-blooded. And Old's mission statement could respectively be boiled down to just fuck it. But Side A is as perfect of a collection of songs as you could possibly create. No skips, as they say. And while Side B is much more inconsistent and imperfect, it's what gives the record its own personal appeal, separate from anything else other rappers or even Danny himself have ever released. The second side of the record sounds like a party you're likely never going to remember. But what's great about music is that you can listen to it again.
I will eat on them pajamas, bite all on it like piranha. When it comes to that vagina, baby girl, you could be my diner, just like back and get it. Don't stop.
Even on the most absurd, filthy, anthemic tracks, take Handstand for example, you're getting unparalleled energy and expensive EDM production. It's the type of record unconfident or uptight songwriters and critics would scoff at, but let me ask you this. Is the fucking rock and roll roller coaster starring Aerosmith at Hollywood Studios and Walt Disney World not fucking fantastic? It's goofy, it really is, but it takes massive amounts of taste and technique to engineer something like that. And that's probably my least favorite song on the album. Smoking and Drinking, Dip, Kush Coma are all even better versions of that same exact song. The trap elements on the second side are really interesting, and I'll never say that about the genre in nearly any other capacity. Trap, currently and historically, carries a lot of its appeal due to how easy it is to replicate and make for yourself. Songs that can be whipped up anytime inspiration strikes. Old, in my opinion, is one of the first major records to illustrate EDM trap in a sophisticated way. A subgenre that has grown tremendously since the release of Old. Probably because of the Harlem Shake, but, you know, it's worth noting. The first side of Old, while still being massively exciting, is Danny working in his element, giving fans precisely what they love about Triple X, even if it pains him to speak. Many of the songs on here are a reflection of grief and the mistakes that still haunt him to this day, heightened by often hair-raising production. He talks often about growing up surrounded by violence. The first verse of Torture exemplifies this, perhaps the best, with very descriptive imagery of crackheads beating each other with hammers and a very unfortunate use of peanut butter, describing how he feels like a prisoner of war. If you're turned off by the sporadic changes in pitch, Side A is as normal as Danny gets, vocally speaking. The more introspective and depressing his writing is, the more he opts for his normal voice. Danny's ability to go from high-pitched to laid-back on the same album and even the same song is a trait only shared by a list of rappers I can count with my hands. You got Kendrick Lamar, Danny Brown, Kendrick Lamar, yeah, those two. Sometimes with Danny, you never know if his silliness is genuine or satire, but it rarely matters when it works regardless. On tracks like The Closer Float On, in which he ponders over his role in music and the role of drugs in his life, his honesty is suffocating in a good way. The track perfectly ties together the dueling sides of the record, providing intelligent callbacks to various tracks. Like the entirety of Old, it's a complex, moving, and often heartbreaking look into addiction.
Got the whole world listening, get your ear for a second, a life-changing decision. Every other minute, thoughts run through my mind about how bad I wanted this, but I cannot waste time, so I'm trapped in the beat, stuck on every line. Nothing else matter except my next rhyme. Can never understand all the pressure I'm against, getting high, thinking how to make it better than your last shit.
Originally, I wanted to make the argument that Old is special because it's party music with layers, but That isn't exactly true. Sure, it's more well produced than almost all contemporary party music, it has better bars, it's just better, but its distinction comes more from the story the album tells as a whole, not within individual tracks. By juxtaposing the two sides of the album against each other, allowing us to understand his world and his anxieties, Danny makes his bangers hit us harder, because sometimes you want a party to forget about the past, and the inclusion of disturbing details would assuredly ruin the fun. In interviews for the record, Danny stated that he made XXX, his previous record, with the aim of getting great reviews. So when he started making Old, he was trying to think of artists that came back from receiving great reviews and made an album that was just as good, or better, citing Radiohead's 180-degree turn going from OK Computer to Kid A. Making music with the goal of critical praise is something I think everyone thinks about and does when they're making music, but it's almost dishonorable admitting to your audience. I'm going to completely change up my diction here in this verse to something more avant-garde. I'm going to record my vocals kind of half-assed and rough to be more expressive and vulnerable. I'm going to hire out a live orchestra to play the outro and give a song a more authoritative and serious tone. At the end of the day, many musical decisions are half because it sounds cool and half because critics are probably going to eat that shit up. And this applies to people who have never been heard before and people who have been in the spotlight for decades, but especially when you're trying to position yourself as a more musically ambitious artist and kind of try to gain the approval of more informed listeners, it's almost a given that you're making songs with a critic or some random dude on Rate Your Music in the back of your mind. What makes this quote cool is that no one really ever admits that, despite how obvious it is. But on Old, Danny seems above it for the first time in his career. And that's not to say I don't love his previous records, but for as acclaimed as he is, this record didn't feel like it was going for anyone's approval like many other treasured hip-hop records are. Its experimentation is genuine, and when it isn't experimental, it's just plain fun. Thanks guys for watching. If you haven't already, I would love for you guys to check out my channel, maybe even subscribe, I don't know. And if you want more music content like this, let me know. Also, let me know your thoughts on this record in the comments. I think that I am going to do some TV content next. I don't know what yet, but I haven't done a video on TV in a few months, and it's kind of my namesake. Anyways, have a good holiday season, and hope to see you guys next time.